What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and today we're going to continue with the draft grades. Again, I'll try to make these quick as possible. If you haven't yet, subscribe to your Average Joe's Sports Network, and if you have any graphic design needs, Anthony Garcia is your man. His website is in the description below, anthonygarciadesign.com. So we're going to start with the NFC North today. And I'm going to start with the Chicago Bears. And for the Chicago Bears, I give them an A- for their efforts. And honestly, it's mostly because of their gutsiness and realizing that they needed to make a play for a quarterback at Justin Fields. I knew this was a guy that they would gravitate towards when they were trying to get in the market for Russell Wilson. This was their plan B, and you talk about, the needs that they still need to address for the offensive line, which they did get Kevin Jenkins in the second round. They traded up to get him as well. But, until that offensive line gets to improve, Justin Fields can make plays and continue to advance the ball down the field. They got Allen Robinson back to help him out, and also David Montgomery rushed for his first 1,000-yard season last year. So I like those picks a lot. Also, they continue to add depth on the offensive side, getting Khalil Herbert, the running back from Virginia Tech, and then Daz Newsome, the wide receiver from North Carolina. And I think, if depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, I feel like, the Bears could end up going back to the playoffs in 2 years straight for the first time since 05 and 06, when Lovie Smith took his Bears to the playoffs in those years. And then obviously we know in 06 they end up going to the Super Bowl to face the Indianapolis Colts. Next is the Green Bay Packers, and frankly, I give them a C for their efforts. First of all, the corner, I understand, when you talk about facing Tom Brady in that offense, you think, oh, we need a cornerback right there. I'm just not, I just didn't think that Eric Stokes was worthy of a first-round pick. I feel like he has a lot to develop. They'll have Jari Alexander back. They got Kevin King right there, Josh Jackson. I didn't feel like, that cornerback would have something they would address in the first round. That I wanted them to address wide receiver in the first round right there. But at the same time, I knew the trend was either go offensive line or defense. And guess what? That was their first two picks right there. Getting center, obviously with Corey Lindsey, his future in question, and also the drafting of Amari Rodgers, the wide receiver from Clemson. I still think, he's a good wide receiver. Any wide receiver that comes out of Clemson, they got a huge talent of wide receivers down there at the university, which he will upgrade. A lot of people were saying when Amari Rodgers was like Rodgers to Rodgers, and some people even mentioned Randall Cobb's name, since the kind of movement and separation he can get in space. People are reminded of Randall Cobb. But I still think that, that wide receiver should have done a priority, especially when you talk about there was Elijah Moore, the wide receiver from Ole Miss, that was available right there. I think they're both kind of similar players, Amari Rodgers, Elijah Moore. I just would have preferred Elijah Moore. Plus, there's things I would have liked to have addressed on the defensive side other than corner, like the middle linebacker position. It seems like it's been very neglected, since they released both their middle linebackers last year, Jake Ryan and Blake Martinez. Which, by the way, Blake Martinez had a heck of a year in his first year with the New York Giants. So let's go on to the Minnesota Vikings, and I gave them a B+ for their efforts. First of all, getting that offensive lineman, I really wanted them to get an offensive lineman, even though it wasn't Rashawn Slater that ended up doing it. It was like literally one pick away, and so they traded back and got Christian Darrisaw, which again, another guy that I mentioned during my draft needs segments. I'm glad they got some protection on that left side right there. And then the interesting pick, the Kellen Mond pick from Texas A&M. And to me, the moment I saw that pick, I immediately revert back to Dak Prescott when he got drafted in the 4th round by the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of people didn't think of it at the time. Tony Romo was still playing. But I thought, man, this guy could have a chance to play, and Tony Romo could watch out if he gets injured. Let alone, look what happened. He got injured in the preseason. I was telling people that Dak Prescott is going to be like Kurt Warner, when Trent Green went down and then Kurt Warner took over. The same thing happened. I told people this was going to happen, and when I saw Kellen Mond go there, I'm like, watch out, Kirk Cousins, because if you're not healthy and if you don't play well, then perhaps Kellen Mond could be the new face of the franchise. Also notable picks by the Minnesota Vikings, Smith-Marsette, the linebacker from North Carolina. And if you're from Iowa and you're subscribed to me, then you'll know a story of Joel Lanning, who's a quarterback for the Ankeny High School Hawks, who when he went to Iowa State, he was asked to transfer to linebacker. That's the same story with Smith-Marsette. Also notable, Wyatt Davis, the guard from the Ohio State, Patrick Jones II, a guy that looks a lot like Jadeveon Clowney, has the same explosiveness. I just don't think his technique is solidified yet. Kind of similar to Danielle Hunter, who, by the way, will be his teammate in Minnesota. But Minnesota and Mike Zimmer have that coaching to firm that technique up. And you're talking about Patrick Jones and Danielle Hunter. Watch out for that combination. Also, smith-marsette, the wide receiver from Iowa. I mentioned him before. Man, you got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen on the sidelines. If they decide to use them in multiple packages like the reverses, trick plays, and man, I mean, maybe they put him on the slot and they throw him to the middle of the field. I think that could be a good one right there. So then finally, the Detroit Lions, and I also give them a B+ for their efforts. I mean, it's not the way I would have approached it, but at the same time, I gotta admire their focus, which was controlling the line of scrimmage. That's what their first few picks were. When they got Penei Sewell, when they got Levi Onwuzurike and Nick Neal from North Carolina State, they got guys that can control the line of scrimmage. And particularly, like I said, people are talking about getting a wide receiver for Jared Goff. Remember, Anthony Lynn's offense is going to be more run heavy. So they got the running backs with DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams from the Green Bay Packers, and they still get a wide receiver in the fourth round with Amon-Ra St. Brown. My ideal lineup is that you get Tyrell Williams and Amon St. Brown as your two wide receivers, and let Brashad Perryman, who I think could still take the top off of defense, have him be your slot guy. And I think you got a pretty good offense. I don't think they're going to be competitive with the other three teams that I mentioned. But again, I'm very excited to see what Dan Campbell does in his first year. And so when I look at the NFC North right here, last year I was so upset with the Jordan Love trade that I was like, you know what, they're going to miss the playoffs entirely because they didn't get a wide receiver. Well, it was the same result as the year before. I've told you this before, that they didn't get a wide receiver, and so they lost in the championship like they did the year before. And so I almost want it to change. I mean, maybe Amari Rodgers could end up being the guy that's a difference maker. I definitely think he's going to be more consistent than the other wide receivers like Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who, by the way, combined dropped 12 passes last year. So at least they got a wide receiver higher than, because usually they wait for day 3 to get, a running back or a wide receiver, an offensive weapon. But honestly, this depends on where Aaron Rodgers goes. If Aaron Rodgers stays and he plays, then obviously the Packers win the NFC North. But if somehow Aaron Rodgers is traded away, keep an eye out for the Bears and the Vikings. Obviously, I think the Bears have more of an advantage to win the NFC North with that defense they have. They have been able to retain it. And I think the reason they trade up to get Justin Fields is, like I said, they have a small window of opportunity where they have all these defensive playmakers in there. And whereas the next few years, when all these guys, their contract expires and they start going to free agency, then they may not be able to retain all this talent. So I feel like they got maybe a year or two, maybe 3-year opportunity to seize the moment right here with Justin Fields right here. And again, the guys I mentioned, David Montgomery and Allen Robinson, I just don't know how far Justin Fields can take that offense. Maybe, Anthony Miller can step it up. There's also, like I said, Daz Newsome. I liked him coming out of North Carolina. Him and Diami Brown were a good tandem down there. Maybe he can become more than offense. It just depends on how he matches up with the rest of that wide receiving core. But nonetheless, I feel like, and I just got a report from my phone right here. I got a lot of my phones, connected to updates, and apparently the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are in negotiations right now. So perhaps Aaron Rodgers will stay, and the NFC North will still be theirs. But I'm still skeptical. Keep an eye out for the Bears. Keep an eye out for the Vikings. They still got those offensive playmakers with Dalvin Cook, Justin Fields, and Adam Thielen. They just need to build that defense up. And like you said, when you add guys like Patrick Jones second to match up with Daniel Hunter, heck, we'll see what happens. So this has been Draft Grades with the NFC North. Stay tuned for the rest of those grades. Have a good day, everybody.